Welcome to Women Got Game, where we uncover untold stories of extraordinary women in sports across Northwest Ohio and beyond. I'm Sophia Fisher, and we're going to celebrate the evolution of female athletes, coaches, and sports enthusiasts. Let's dive into a world often overlooked in the broader sports narrative. Ready to explore? Let's play. Passion for the game of sport has been a lifelong emotion shared by fans all over the globe who are really passionate about the sports they follow. This passion can sometimes lead to heightened emotions, and when things don't go the way they want, fans can express their frustration by yelling at referees or cheering loudly and praising the official for a great call that went in their team's favor. Have you ever been one of those fans in the crowd? Well, today we have the fortunate opportunity to visit with Patty Broderick. Patty Broderick is the coordinator for Women's Basketball Officiating Consortium. The consortium conference members include the Big Ten, Big 12 Summit, Conference USA, the Mid-American Conference, Missouri Valley Conferences, Horizon League, Great Lakes Valley Conference, which is Division II, and the CCIW Conference Division III. Patty has been an NC2A Final Four official 7 times. She's also officiated the 1988 Olympics in Seoul, as well as 6 WNBA championships. She's also served as the director of officials for the WNBA from 2002 to 2004. And in 1988, Patty won the inaugural Naismith Award and was inducted into the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame in Knoxville, Tennessee in 2008. Wow, what an amazing career. And Patty, thanks for taking the time to speak with us today. It's awesome to have you.
Well, I appreciate it, and I look forward to our conversation and hope that we can educate the American public what officiating is really all about on this side of the line.
That's awesome. Again, let me start by asking what motivated you personally to become a referee?
Well, obviously, you grow up in a family of sports. I had 3 brothers and then 2 sisters later on in life, so kind of kept them from fighting and arguing when they were playing basketball out in the parking lot or in the driveway. And so it was kind of like I didn't want them to kill each other, so they would look over at me and I'd say foul, or look over at them and I'd say, hey, play on. And then it started CYO. Catholic Youth Organization is what CYO is, and I was asked by the school I went to, a grade school. I was in high school graduating, and they were going to start a little league for 9-year-old girls. And it was the first ever. It was back in 1971, and they asked would I coach the little 7th and 8th grade girls team. And I said, wow, okay, we'll do it. Well, at the time, we didn't have any referees, so we refereed the game before or the game after, and as did the other coaches who had the other teams in the league. They would ref your game. So the next year we said, wow, we better go take the test or do something because we don't really know what we're doing. So we went and took the high school officiating test so we knew what we were doing and we could keep the program going, and that is how it all started.
Wow. It sounds like a lot of fun, and especially, really with your siblings, and those are memories that you all have for a lifetime. Tell me a little bit more about the process. So you said you did go get qualified to become a referee for the high school level, but let's dig a little bit deeper into what qualifications are actually needed when you go into the collegiate realm, and what does that look like to be certified?
Well, back then, there wasn't anything. If you did high school, the colleges would call you up, and we didn't have NCAA tournaments then. We didn't have any kind of organization. We had NAGWS, and that was the National Association of Women and Girls in Sports, and there was no NCAA. So there wasn't a whole lot of training, but we did have training in regards to once we got into college, we had to go take a test, and we had to do a practical on the floor, and you could get your officiating certification that way for college. And you could have a local apprentice certification, you have a local certification, or you could have a state certification, or you could have a national certification. So the state certification, you can only referee in your state. The national certification, you could referee outside your state. So that's how that kind of took off. Now, We have so many things in place. There's training during the summer. There's testing that they have to take. There's reviewing of film after games. It's a major, major fishbowl. And the accountability piece with all the technology that we have nowadays, there's a lot more continuing education. There's a lot more that officials have to do before they ever step on the floor at a Division I level, collegiate level, Division II, Division III. So there's a lot of certification that goes on along with that now that there wasn't back in the 70s.
Wow. Very interesting. And moving forward, obviously you've been in this industry for a long time and made an excellent career out of it. And may I just ask before we move on, when you actually started, what percentage of women would you say were actually officiating compared to today?
0. Maybe a handful. When I went to the 1988 Olympics, there were 62 men and me.
Wow.
When I went to Seoul. I was over there with 62 male officials and myself. So, yeah, we've come well, it sounds like that commercial, we've come a long way. But we have, as far as more women in the industry, more women in the business, on the officiating side, just like we do with, your position in media, coaching, training. There's all kinds of sports information. There's all kinds of things that you can do now with sport that involve more opportunities for women.
So really, what kept you in it then? Was it really the passion of the game? I'm curious to know more about you personally and what, obviously, it was you and again, very male-dominant industry. What really was it that kept you coming back and participating in sport?
The passion is, it gets in your blood. You still want to be involved in athletics. I did not play collegiately in athletics. I played, out in the parking lot. We didn't have any organized sport for women back in the early 70s. So, you had to play with your brothers and you had to watch them play Little League. There wasn't any softball. I think at CYO we played basketball and we played kickball. I don't even know if anybody knows what kickball is. And so I love the competitive nature, and I wanted to be involved in team sports. And so since there really wasn't an opportunity for that, then, officiating kind of dropped right in my lap. It's competitive. You got to stay in shape. You're involved in sports. It's an opportunity to see the world. It's an opportunity. It could be lucrative to make a career out of it, which it did for me. So it's kind of how that all fell into staying involved in officiating. And then just the fact that, I knew in my heart, somebody's got to be out there to referee these games, because if they're not, you don't have a game of basketball. You got to have players, you got to have coaches, you got to have referees, or there's no game. It's kind of what drove me, and I guess the competitive nature of one and being involved in sports. And it is, you want to do the best job that you can. You want to be the best official you can, same as, the players want to be the best players they can, and coaches want to be the best coaches they can be, and you're just competitive in that spirit. So just a different avenue to get there.
So if you had to pick one skill, and we're going to talk about skills here shortly, as far as what would you think the number one skill is to be a great referee or official?
People person. If you have people person skills, you're involved in a people person business. I think those that have the instinctiveness, the passion, real hard worker, good work ethic, those kinds of things, those are what make a good official. I mean, sure, you got to have rules knowledge, and you got to know where to stand and where to look and all that kind of stuff. But I think if you have common sense, people person skills, those are the best officials.
Well, that's awesome. Would you agree that effective communication is crucial also? And looking at how do you personally ensure clear communication with the players and coaches and your other fellow officials that you're, during the game? How do you really navigate that? Because everybody communicates a little differently. And how do you communicate and make sure people really, respect you on the court?
Well, I'm not on the court anymore, so what I do as far as training my officials is I tell them it's really important. We're involved in a game that has diversity. It has a gazillion different kinds of personalities, and then throw in it's winning and losing. That's a tough environment. I mean, that's a really, really tough environment. So, we've got to understand communication-wise, you're going to have a different personality every night out on the court with players and with coaches. And so it's almost like you have to, be some kind of therapist or some kind of philosophical person who understands human nature and how you take a coach who's at a 10 and losing their mind and bring them down to a 5 and get them to calm down and say, hey, I hear you, I'm listening, we're working really hard, and try to somehow, some way, deal with all the emotion that's involved in a game, and there's a lot of it. So, again, there's fan emotion, player emotion, coach emotion, administrator emotion. Media gets on the other side of the line, and is sometimes saying, "Oh, that's a terrible call." So you're just dealing with a whole lot of things, but the people that we have involved in officiating at the collegiate level that I am right now are dedicated. They are committed to being the best that they can possibly be, and they do not want to make mistakes. A lot of people, this is their job, and they understand that, you can't make mistake after mistake after mistake every single solitary night, but they're also human beings. And a part of this game has got a lot of judgment involved. You have 10 superior athletes out there running up and down all over the floor, jumping out of their tennis shoes. They're amazing. They train 365 days out of the year. And so then when you put them out on the floor, you've got to be able to compete with them, run up and down the floor with them. But you've got to make a split-second decision in whether is that contact illegal or is that contact incidental. So, there's contact involved in the game of basketball all over. But, some of it's an illegal contact, stops them from making a basket, knocks them off their path, holds them, clamps them. They can't get a rebound. They can't get a pass. Then there's some that's just incidental contact where, there's a little bump when they go to the basket, but it did not stop them from performing their normal offensive or defensive movement. They got the shot off. And so, that's a play on. So, that's an art. That's not a science. That's a feel in your gut, whether or not it is incidental or it is illegal.
100%. And obviously now we have technology where you can do, the playback and, the video, and they show it, was that a good call, bad call? But in particular, is there any game that stands out in your career when the stakes were super high and you had to handle a disagreement or dispute with players, coaches, or spectators when you were on the court? For example, did you ever have to eject anybody? Can you tell us a fun little memory that maybe stands out that you'll never forget in your career?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's a lot. Unfortunately, there's more, that you want to try not to remember, but there are several that you'll remember for the rest of your life. And I had one of those happen in 1991 in a Final Four game, but at the time we didn't have technology. There was no replay. So it was a game between Virginia and Tennessee. And we had a shot at the end of the game where it was in the air, and a partner underneath was calling a foul while the ball was in the air. So I ran down to say, hey, the ball's in the air. We got to count this basket. No shot, no shot, no shot. Well, long story short, couldn't get him to change his mind, and they disallowed the basket, so we went into overtime. Virginia would have won in regulation, and we went into overtime, and Tennessee won in overtime. So I will remember that for the rest of my life.
I'm sure you got a lot of great stories, and that's obviously You're right. There's a lot at stake, like you said, and I guess really looking at it, I'd like to, you did mention, some great skills beyond just quick, decisive decision making. I think there's stick-to-itiveness involved, great communication, and then the physical fitness and stamina. You have to tell me, those athletes who are elite running up and down that court over the years, it must have kept you in great shape. Can you talk a little bit about that and how you feel today because of it, and any challenges you had? Were there any physical challenges at some point in your career that, keeping up with these young athletes in their 20s and and how that did it ever take a toll on you, or do you view it as a blessing now?
Oh, no, I view it as a blessing. Honestly, I'm in better shape now than I was when I officiated. But not to say that I was in bad shape when I was officiating. But back in, I think it was mid-'80s when we went to three-person officiating. That helped a lot better, keeping up with the superior athletes, because instead of dividing the court in half, we divided it into thirds. So there's certain areas of the court that each official covers, and that's their primary coverage. Not to say they can't go and call in somebody else's area if it's obvious and it's in your secondary coverage. We want to make sure we get the plays right. We call all the obvious illegal activity. But as far as staying in good condition, it's really important. As athletes are in superior shape, so we want our officials to be in the best shape that they can be in. But you also have to understand those athletes never change from 18 to 21 to 22-year old, except for COVID, and now they might be 24 and 25 years old and playing for 5 or 6 years. But that will soon go away. Officials, they're in their 40s. We have some that are in their mid-20s, 30s, 40s, but some of our veteran officials, they're 50 plus years old, but the experience and the knowledge and the wisdom that they have being involved in the game for that many years is critical, to our industry, and also teaching and training those who are coming up the ladder, to replace them as they go into retirement.
Yeah. Well, that's excellent. And, I think you're right. The future of officiating obviously is important. And I do want to segue into, for our time together, is, going into your involvement when you talk about, the training development. Can you tell me about your involvement with the coordinator for the Women's Basketball Officiating Consortium? How did the consortium start and come into existence, and kind of what's behind the driving force behind its formation?
Well, first of all, it started back in about 1992, and back in 92, early 90s, you could be a coordinator and a referee at the same time. Because on women's basketball, it was new. We hadn't had the NCAA for 100 and so many years, however many years that they've had the NCAA men's tournament. So to get things started, a lot of officials were also coordinating for different conferences, which started back, I want to say, in about 70. I want to say it was 74, 75. Offices started hiring men and women to be their coordinator of officials. So then when we start the NCAA tournament, 82, 83, I think that's what it was. Before then it was NAGWS. So as I was working official and a coordinator, and then in 1992, the College Commissioners Association decided that, hey, we don't want you to ref anymore. You either referee or you be a coordinator. Well, at that point in time, I was probably in my early 40s, and I just took a look and said, hey, I've done a lot. I've done this. I've done that. What could my future be to stay involved in officiating? Is it going to be running up and down the floor and I'll be done, in the next 10, 15 years? Or can I spend the rest of my years past being able to run up and down the floor and still be a contributor to the game through coordinating? And coordinating allows you to train, to teach, to identify new talent, to assigning, to evaluating, to responding to coaches and conference commissioners in regards to any officiating concerns that come up. So that's kind of how that all evolved. And then as far as the consortium goes, at the time I was coordinating about 3 conferences. And so those commissioners got together and said, hey, Patty's going to come off the floor. So we want to put this consortium together and continue with 3 conferences that she was coordinating. It went so well that more conferences wanted to being involved in it. And as far as the consortium goes, what we've done is we've provided a consistency through the 8 or 9 conferences that I have across the board with how the game's going to be called following the NCAA national rules. We've pooled our resources. It's kind of like a minor league system where, you can go from Division III to Division II to some of our smaller conferences to our mid conferences to our major conferences. So it's kind of a vertical model, minor league system that, really helps us develop all of our officials and start with a core to bring them up that officiating ladder to get to, every official wants to referee major college basketball. So, that's their goals, that's their aspirations, but there's a lot of steps to get there on the way. Just as a coach, they may start out as coaching at the high school, go to junior college, and then, maybe go to a small college, mid-major, and then, hey, maybe one day they do a Power 5 conference. You just never know. But that's always a goal and aspiration, I think, of an athlete, of a coach. Even you in media, you're doing what you're doing now, and hey, maybe the next thing you know, it's you're working for a major television station or something like that. So, that's kind of how it all started.
And you did mention something earlier that I really like to ask you about more. You mentioned, with diversity and inclusion within women's basketball officiating. Do you see that needle moving in the right direction? Is there more specific initiatives around this and fostering diversity and inclusion within the officiating community for women specifically?
Absolutely, especially in our consortium. We provide training with diversity and inclusion and equity every year at our regional clinics that we have, and we bring in a speaker to talk about those kinds of things. Our balance as far as gender and diversity in the consortium with over 300 some officials is I can't say that it's 50-50, but it's in some cases even higher for diversity and women. So it's a passion of mine. It's I want to see and provide more opportunities for women and diversities to be involved in our industry. So I'm very proud of our stats in regards to our consortium and being able to provide those opportunities. The other thing is we go on to college campuses. We go to spring meetings. We go to media days, and when we see players, we say to them, hey, after you're done playing, do you think about officiating? It's lucrative. You can stay involved in the game. First of all, they laugh crazy at you and say, no, I'm not going to have anybody scream and holler at me. But I say, well, you don't have to do it now, 4 or 5 years from now, because college athletes, especially women's basketball players, they make some of our best officials. So we tap into them to try to recruit, and we've got a lot of female officials who were former basketball players.
Yeah. Let's chat a little bit about, I have to ask you, women officials have historically faced challenges in various sports when it comes to officiating, whether it's been in equitable salaries compared to male counterparts, respect on the court, or even in career advancement. What would you say about specific challenges, rather, that women face today in officiating, whether it's basketball or any other sport? Are those things still obstacles for them that we could do better at in the future?
Well, there's all kinds of obstacles. I can only speak for what we are doing in our consortium. We are working very hard to have equitable game fees, and we have established some of that in some of our leagues, and we're working really hard in some of our others. They're just, in our consortium, we really promote women and minorities. I would think that we've got more women involved with, the WNBA. We've got women involved in officiating male sports, men's basketball, men's football. Well, we have men's football, don't we? Football, those kinds of things. I think there's more opportunities out there. Is there still a ways to go? Sure, there is. But the step has been taken. Glass ceiling has been broken. And I think it will continue to go on.
Looking into the future then, Patty, and how do you envision the Women's Basketball Officiating Consortium impacting, the landscape of basketball in the coming years? And then, more importantly, finally, what advice would you offer a young woman who's thinking about becoming an official?
Well, I talked to a lot of players who, I try to recruit them, and I will say that this is a way to stay involved in the game, to stay in condition, to make a lucrative, salary as an independent contractor, to still be competitive, to be involved in a sport that you've been playing for, since you were probably 6, 7, 8 years old. And if you aren't an athlete, then a lot of officials, women officials that want to come into the game and say, hey, maybe I want to be a referee. Somehow, some way they're involved in some kind of sport. So they know the spirit and intent of what's going on in a game as far as, the winning, the losing. They know the rules. They watch the game, whether it's basketball, whether it's volleyball, whether it's, track and field, swimming, whatever the case may be. I would say that it is not, wearing the stripes kind of has a negative tone to it, but really there's so much more to be to be involved in this, as far as you are providing a way for women to play sports, showcase their talents, have wonderful experiences through sport by officiating, but at the same time it's rewarding for you because it's competitive, and it's really, you're an athlete in a game that you love. It just happens to be officiating.
Well, Patty, I definitely enjoyed our conversation today, and you've wore the stripes on the court. You've obviously moved the needle in a huge way as a coordinator for Women's Basketball Officiating Consortium, and as well for the WNBA and beyond in college athletics. It's really been my pleasure today to speak with you, and I look to see what's in the future for other female officiants.
Thanks for the opportunity, and you enjoy the rest of your day and week.
All right. Hey, thanks for making time again. I know you're super busy.
Okay, you're welcome.
All right.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. I want to thank our guest today, Patty Broderick. It was a great opportunity to get to know more about officiating. Patty, you got game. And remember that sports are meant to be entertaining and a unifying experience. By displaying good fan etiquette towards referees, you contribute to a positive atmosphere that enhances the overall enjoyment of the game for both fans and participants. I'm your host and producer, Sophia Fisher. Executive producer, Chris Pfeiffer. You can hear more at wgte.org/Women Got Game. Join me in my next episode of Women Got Game. In the meantime, stay empowered, inspired, unstoppable.
WGTE. Voices around us.
WGTE is supported in part by the American Rescue Plan Act funds allocated by the City of Toledo and the Lucas County Commissioners and administered by the Arts Commission. For more information about the Voices Around Us podcast project, please visit WGTE.org. You may also listen to all Voices Around Us podcasts at WGTE.org/VAU, the WGTE app, or wherever you get your podcasts online.